Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet in the round. So this is just how to start your working in the round, and I have three separate methods for you today. The first one is the chain 2 method, the second one is the magic ring or the magic circle, and then the third one is the magic ring but with a bit of chenille yarn to start the magic ring. Works best for yarn like this where it snaps or tends to break as you close your magic ring or your chain 2 method. For the magic ring and the chain 2 method, I'll be showing you how to use it with the skinny chenille, which I have right here. This yarn is perfect for these first two methods, and then that last method I'll be showing you how to use with the chenille yarn, basically any type of chenille yarn. First, I would like to do a quick disclaimer. All of these methods are completely interchangeable. So if you ever come across a pattern that uses a magic ring, you can use the chain 2 method in place of it. Now I'm saying this because I, as a beginner, didn't really understand if there was a difference between them. So that is just for you guys to know. They are all completely interchangeable and you can switch it out as much as you want. Just as long as your first round has the same amount of stitches as the pattern calls for, you're good. You can use any method you want. We're going to start with the chain 2 method, and for the chain 2 method there's a little bit of a trick to make it work. I noticed that some people say they don't like the chain 2 method, and I think that has to do with the fact that the slip knot is being made wrong. You can make a slip knot two different ways, and if you make it one of those ways it won't work. If you make a slip knot, let me pull it out, and the main end or your working yarn controls how the knot opens and closes. So here's our knot here, here is our loose end, and here's our working yarn. If this end controls the slip like it does right now, then your slip knot won't close easily when you're doing the chain 2 method. You'll have to sew it up. So to avoid that, we're going to make the slip knot the opposite way, where the loose end is controlling your slip, and that way you can close it. To make this correct slip knot, what we're going to do is take our loose end into our dominant hand, and in our non-dominant hand we're going to go ahead and hold the yarn just like this across our hand. With your two bottom fingers, go ahead and hold those ends together, and then with your two pointer fingers up here, your middle finger and your pointer finger, we're going to start wrapping the yarn. So bring the yarn towards you to begin with, and then up, back, towards away from you, and create an X on the back of our two fingers. Then we're just going to turn our hand over and hold these ends. So now we have our little cross in the back and our two ends on top. What you're going to do is you're going to slip your hook under the first one, over the second one, and pull that second one through the first one. And then you can just let go, and at this point go ahead and close up that knot. Now another tip is don't close your knot too tight. You want it to look nice, but don't close it too tight. Now go ahead and chain 2. So here we have the chain 2. This loop right here is where we're going to place our single crochets. So for this example round, I'm just going to be placing 6, but do whatever the pattern calls for. And as you work, this ring should start to open up, this chain 2 method. If it doesn't open up, then your knot is either too tight or you've made it the opposite direction you need to, where the working end is controlling the slip. Either way, you probably should start again if you can't move this tail very easily. Now what I like to do is close it as best I can now, not too tight, and then I like to do the next round. So do whatever the next round is for your pattern. I'll just be increasing in each stitch for this example. And that's the end of your second round, whatever it is. And then at this point I like to close it all of the way. Now I like to do this for every method. All three of these methods you should close it after the second round because it gives you more of a grip and it makes it look nicer. And on top of that, it's easier to crochet into that first stitch if you wait to cinch it all the way until after the second round. So here's the chain 2 method. See if it'll focus. As you can see, it looks pretty nice. There's nothing in particular that's different about the magic ring. The only real difference is the magic ring is crocheted into like the knot part of the slip knot, versus this where you're crocheting into that loop part of the slip knot. If you enjoyed the chain 2 method, you can stick with it. I recommend looking at all 3 of these methods first before committing to any of them. That way you can figure out which one's your favorite. I also say don't be afraid to experiment. If maybe the chain 2 starts to bug you after amount of time, go ahead and pick up the magic ring or, you know, something like that. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the magic ring. So I'm going to go ahead and snip this so that we can move on. So that's our chain 2 method finished. And now we're going to be doing our magic ring or the magic circle. For the magic ring, we're going to start in a much similar way, but this time we're actually going to be making our slip knot the opposite direction as the chain 2 method. What we're going to do is put our extra end, we're going to put it right across our hand. Wrap your fingers just like we did with the X on the back, and then the 2 loops on the front. And for this one, we're going to slip under the first one, through the second one, and we're just going to pull it up and twist. We're not going to take it off our fingers yet, but we're going to pull it up and we're going to twist away towards our working end. This is the working end here, and we're going to go ahead and chain 1. Now you can also remove your fingers and do the chain 1 if it's easier for you to do that. Basically just don't make any quick movements and you should be able to make that chain 1. Once you make that chain 1, it's pretty secure, and this is what the magic ring looks like. I'm going to go ahead and pull this end out a little bit. And then in that magic ring, you're going to go right through these 2 loops here and crochet. You're going to single crochet however many you need for your first round. I'll just be doing 6, just like the previous one. And now we're going to go ahead and close this. So I take the loose end and you just pull it. Now, like I said, do not pull it too tight. You want to leave a little bit of space, and we're going to close it up properly during the second round. So go ahead and do your second round, whatever it is for your pattern. I'll just be increasing for this example. And that's the end of that round. You can see we're still a little bit loose in the middle. So what we're going to go ahead and do is close it all the way. And with all these methods, I recommend wiggling that end as you pull it, just to get any snags and make sure you're pulling it nice and tight. And there is the magic ring finished. So this is the chain 2 method, this is the magic ring, and you can kind of see there's not too much difference between them. Chain 2, magic ring. Magic ring is a little bit bulkier, I guess you could say, but it's never going to be noticeable. Whichever method you use, it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and snip this. And we have one last method to do, which is the magic ring or the magic circle with a size 4 yarn to start it. This works best with the chenille yarn, like I said earlier. But this is the chain 2, this is the magic ring. Before I move on, I do have one thing I'd like to say. No matter what method you use out of all 3 of these, you should secure your end. And you should do this with every single thing you make. So you should take your loose end from your magic ring or your chain 2 method, whichever one you use, thread your needle, and you're just going to pick up a loop on the back side of your work, and we're just going to create a knot. So we're going to make an archway, slip our needle under it, and pull it tight. And I like to do this twice, at least 2 times. And pull it tight again. And that secures this magic ring or your chain 2 method. It helps keep the whatever you're working on, whether it's a plushie or not, it helps it last longer. It helps it through wear and tear. If you wash it, they won't come loose. And you should do this if you're even using the magic ring or the chain 2 method for a granny square. You should also be securing that back end before tucking it in. That is my little bit of advice for every type of ring, chain 2, whatever you use, you should do that. Now we're going to go ahead and do our last method. For this method, you're going to need some size 4 yarn. I just have a bit of chenille yarn. The longer you make this end, the easier this method will be, and the more you learn this method, you can go ahead and make it shorter and shorter to a point, of course. We're going to need some chenille yarn. This can be blanket yarn, chenille yarn, any type of yarn where you try and close the magic ring or your chain 2 method and it gets hooked up on itself, it snaps, that type of stuff. This makes it way easier. I use this method every single time with this yarn now. And you can do this with any size 4 yarn as well. Acrylic, cotton, doesn't matter, you're not going to see it at all. So I have my 5mm hook for this yarn, and what we're going to do is wrap this yarn around our fingers in basically exactly the same way that we did for the last two methods. But in this case, we're actually going to take both ends off and hold it on our hook. So here I'm holding it with my pointer, and I have these two loops right here. So now we're going to take our chenille yarn, and you're going to put it onto your hook, hold it with that pointer finger, and then hold your yarn as you normally do, and you're going to grab this whole cluster, all of this yarn here with your other hand. And then we're going to pull our chenille yarn through the size 4 yarn, and then we will chain 1. Just like that. So now we have a secure magic ring. So now go ahead and put however many single crochets you need into this first round here. So same with the other ones, I'm just going to be doing 6. Just like that. And now, this is kind of the complicated part, but it's not too bad. Pull your chenille yarn first. You should always do it first. And then what you're going to do is pull both ends of your size 4 yarn just a little bit at a time until it closes. And don't pull it too tight yet either. Now we're going to do our second round just like we did with the other methods before closing it up all the way. And there's the end of that second round. So now we're going to go ahead and close it up all the way. So I start by pulling the chenille yarn first, make sure it's all the way in, and then I pull on both sides of the size 4 yarn. Again, wiggle it if you need to. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie these two ends together, the two size 4 ends together. And then for extra protection, I like to tie the two size 4 yarns to the chenille yarn. Just some basic knots is fine. And there we have our magic ring with the chenille yarn, and you can see how clean the magic ring looks. It's not sitting weird, it's not poking out in any way because we're using this method that keeps the chenille yarn intact. I highly recommend this method. I use it every time. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to do. Give it a try, give it a chance, I'm telling you. It is the best thing. If you are ever concerned about the way your magic ring looks or your chain 2 method looks, try this method because it looks so much cleaner. It's so much easier, you're not breaking yarn, and it's totally worth the extra effort. Quick tip though, is if you don't have any size 4 yarn, you can just run to your local store and get the cheapest size 4 yarn you can. Even a size 3 yarn would work for this as well. Just use one skein of that for your starting your magic rings, if you use the chenille yarn, of course. It's totally worth the extra expense. You don't need that much, so one skein will last a long time, and it will definitely be worth it. I promise you, it is worth it. And on top of that, it's much easier to secure the ends too, because you're just tying stuff together. You don't have to get your needle out and tie the ends that way. So those are all the methods finished. As you can see, they all look basically the same. Nobody will know if you use the chain 2 method, the magic ring, or the different magic ring method. Don't be afraid to experiment, pick your favorite. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if one of these is your favorite. If you have any questions about any of them, let me know too, and I'll try my best to answer them as fast as I can. Hope you enjoyed this little tutorial situation. I hope to do a few more of these different techniques in the future, such as how I don't use a stitch marker anymore. Kind of just like master classes on how to become a better crocheter. So if you're interested in any of that, let me know in the comments. Ask your questions, fire away. I'm ready for them. Now, I appreciate you watching to the end of this video. I love you guys. I really, really appreciate you guys, and I will see you later. Bye!